talk about? We started talking about podcasts and how it's gone, haven't we? And then we were saying about whether you prefer to listen to a podcast or whether you prefer to watch a podcast. And you prefer watching and I prefer listening.
Yeah. I prefer watching because I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to see the person that's talking. And it's weird because when I listen to the radio, I don't have that. I don't have that problem, which is a bit strange. But yeah, when I want to, maybe it's different because podcasts are generally informative, they're interesting, and radio's not. I don't know. It's
yeah, radio's on in the background, just entertaining you in that sense.
It's entertainment, not
it's filling a space rather than educating you.
That's it. And I think also when you're driving along, listening to a podcast, it's harder to take in that information.
Well, you see, I listen to books.
Yeah, I can't do that either.
Yeah, so and I really enjoy listening to books, which means I must get around to doing my book on.
You've got the kit to do it.
I know, but Will suggested doing it through like having a chat, read a chapter, and then chat about the chapter and doing it that way. Which I suppose you and I could probably do that together.
Good, yeah,
saves you reading it, then doesn't it?
Well, exactly. That's it. I can read it and then ask you about it.
But
quite interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Start a new series. What would you call it? Angie's Book Corner.
You could do. I kind of started kicking my backside to do some more writing but it's funny because last night, well, Dave's not been brilliant, so he sat in front watching some really odd programs, the kind of programs that you really like watching, i.e., those police programs where they go in and raid houses and various other bits and pieces and stop people on the side of the road and stuff. And I have no interest in watching that because it just irritates me because they get off and they don't get punished and the police have been treated so badly.
Yes, that's it. There's a new one that's out in the minute. I can't remember what it's called, but it's on Channel 5. And they tell you what the punishment they get is.
Yeah.
And that's actually really good because
but most of them get off.
A lot of them do, but at least you know.
Yeah, but I don't think that's right. If you can see on the TV that somebody has been abusive to another individual, why should they get off with it?
Yeah, that's very true.
And they're not abusive just to any Tom, Dick and Harry either. Or does that then give them permission to be abusive to any Tom, Dick or Harry? But also they're violating somebody in their workplace, which is a policeman trying to do his job. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why would you think that that's okay?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And I'm so glad that the government brought out the law around causing any kind of harm to an emergency service worker, because that's how now
they get away.
To prosecute people.
Good.
Because it is really wrong. Yeah. If you're a policeman or a police person, I should say, police officer, a paramedic, or a firefighter, you shouldn't
have to put up with that.
Put up with abuse of any kind, physical or.
I was just talking to one of my team, and they've just had to deal with a situation, and it's like, don't put up with it.
No, exactly.
But by all means, give somebody the skills to then go, how am I going to do my anger management? Because this was the discussion. Oh, well, I've dealt with it, and I said, I'm almost. The member of staff said, I'm almost worried about if I say you need to look at your anger management, that actually I'm going to kick that person off. And I said, well, if they're like that, get them to leave. They don't need to stay in a rehab. If they don't want to look at their behaviour, which is what they're there to do, then actually...
They're not ready for rehab.
They're not ready for rehab. Exactly. And it's like, and what I just heard wasn't very pleasant. And I just thought, do you know what? People don't go to work to be treated like that.
No, exactly. You wouldn't allow it in any other kind of workplace.
No.
Why do people in the public sector should they suffer it? They shouldn't.
Do you think, because I think they do you think you become desensitized to a certain degree?
I think there's an element of it. I remember going to visit an organisation a couple of years ago now, before COVID, and I was going there to do a presentation to some of their senior team, and walked in, and their receptionist almost presumed that I was a client, and their heckles went up. They just became a very different person when anybody got to the front of the queue. It was very visible, and as soon as I said, I've got the senior management team and so on, a complete persona changed.
Sad, isn't it?
And it's really sad because I suspect they've had to become like that because of they've had some
hostility,
bad experience.
But also that's you could go the other way, couldn't you? Are people not kind to those people because that's how they approach
Yeah.
them?
A lot of people out there think that, by shouting and screaming, they're going to get the answer or resolution that they want. Um, you hear all the time about people that ring up call centres because their washing machine's not working or whatever it might be, and all they do is shout and scream, and you're not you're not going to get a resolution just because you shout and scream. You can achieve the same by just being calm and polite and kind. You don't have to be this really horrible, nasty person.
But sometimes when you don't feel that you're getting heard, so I had an incident quite recently when trying to get some professional body to come and help, and they 55 minutes later you're still waiting on the end of the phone.
Yeah,
And in the end I rang them back and said, this is not okay. You cannot be leaving me here in a vulnerable situation without any support. It's your job.
yeah,
Get somebody out here now, please. And they did, and they were pretty good. They did, but that's an hour later. You don't know what's going to happen between that time, and I think that's always a. But I understand. I could scream and shout. I have screamed and shouted. I'd be lying if I said I haven't. And sometimes I think that I'm not a screamer or a shouter, but
yeah.
do you know what I'm saying?
I think there's a time and a place,
I've got
and
cross.
yeah, yeah, and I have as well. And I've been annoyed and upset when I've spoken to people, and you know, that to it that was a bad thing to do. But I certainly don't set out to
Yeah.
do that. I think it's more about
No.
what point are you trying to make, and you don't have to be horrible or nasty to make that point.
But when you've been sat on a phone, so for example, I was having something delivered from a very well-known company, and they were delivering this to the house, and I had a set date, a set time-ish, within a few
Yeah,
hours, and so I arranged for somebody to sit at the house because I had other appointments that I had to go to, and there was nobody else around the farm, which is unusual. I hasten to add, it is unusual, but there wasn't anybody around, and so I paid somebody to come and sit because it was the best way. I don't have family, so it was not like I could call on anybody. So I paid this person to come in to sit in for 6 hours. And then, literally, on the morning that they were delivering, they cancelled
yeah,
on that morning. And it's like, well, so what do I say to the person that's expecting that 6 hours pay?
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, they've changed their mind. They're going to do it tomorrow. And actually, I'm home tomorrow, so I don't need you. You can't do that.
No, exactly. I had a similar experience literally last week. Um, I'd ordered a bed frame for a property, and it had been on order for about 3 weeks. They've taken the money the day that I ordered it, and I don't know. It must have been every day leading up to the delivery day. They would text me reminding me that they're going to deliver it.
Yeah, same here.
Right, and then on the day of the delivery, I get a phone call at about, I don't know, 10:30 in the morning saying, "Oh, sorry, we haven't got stock to deliver this." And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you've been texting me. You must have known when you sold this product whether you had the stock or not.
Yeah.
Even if you had the stock coming in and something had happened, surely you know that before the morning of the delivery. And I just thought, this is just ridiculous. But what made me laugh, 'cause I just sort of said, yeah, okay, whatever, when can you deliver it? And it's now in another 3 weeks. But what made me laugh is at about 12 o'clock, the delivery driver phoned me saying, oh, you're next in the queue for your delivery. And I'm like, oh, right, how far away are you? He said, oh, 10, 15 minutes. I said, that's really strange because literally 2 hours ago, somebody phoned me, told me you had no stock. Are you sure you've got it on the back of your lorry? And he says, "Oh, well, let me go and check." And he went and checked, and he goes, "Yeah, it's not here." And you think, so you've wasted your own delivery driver's time as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And you think, that's just poor management, surely.
But they also subcontract.
They
So
do.
and that's the thing, they'll subcontract that delivery man out, won't they? And
Yeah.
they won't necessarily take any notice of it.
No, that's it. And there's this attitude of, oh, well,
Yeah.
and they just sort of shrug their shoulders. And I think that's just a really poor attitude to have when you have people that are working for you. I think if I booked people to come and do a job, and then on the morning they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that job now. The materials haven't arrived." I'd be really
Yeah.
embarrassed about it. But also that's on me.
But that
I
doesn't
didn't
that
manage
happen?
that. Pardon?
Because that happens for Dave all the time. So he's ordered the materials. They're supposed to be here the day before or that very early, the early first drop. You'll
Yeah.
be the first drop on that day. Sorry, we couldn't deliver it today. You'll be the first drop. And we've got somebody here that's working for him and we're paying that person and it doesn't
Yeah.
arrive.
It is very common, especially in the sort of,
Like the building
I was going
trade.
to say the building trade, but I was
I
also
was
going to
going to
say
say, yeah, yeah.
everywhere
I
right
think you're
now.
probably right.
But I think touch wood, I've not had that. I generally try to get it delivered a day or a couple of days before the work's going to happen. It doesn't always happen, and there are times where we have to reschedule the work,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's certainly not on the day. It will be the day before at the sort of worst case scenario. But yeah, it really pains me. I think is probably the expression to use when organisations cannot organise their stock, their deliveries, all of that. It's not that complicated, really.
I understand that things occasionally go wrong, but when you are constantly, I mean, I am not as patient as you, and I'm certainly not as patient as Dave. Dave's got the patience of a saint because I would have lost my temper in a nice way. I wouldn't have been abusive, but I would have said, "This is not acceptable."
And if you're a business that sells things online and delivers them, I'm not being funny, but the most important part of your business is having that stock and delivering it.
Yeah,
So to phone up and then say on the day of the delivery, sorry, we've not got any stock, I just think that's crazy. But
yeah,
the bit that also annoys me, we're in a world now where the cost of living is going up. They've been holding on to my £350 now for the best part of 6 weeks, and I don't have the product. So my argument is I paid you for a product that you've not given me. All they're doing now is holding my money
yeah,
until that stock
yeah,
comes
yeah,
in.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
using my money to
yeah,
purchase the
yeah, yeah,
stock,
yeah.
which is okay, but not
Well, no, it's not.
not when you don't tell me you're doing
Well, no,
that.
it's not because that's not normal
It's not
practice.
normal practice.
You know,
I agree.
and you're a business, and
Yeah,
a business can pay in 30 days.
it can exactly. That's it. So they've had effectively double. Um, they've had double whammy really because hopefully their credit terms are good, but also they've had the money from the customer up front. Um, it's just a bizarre concept that you can sell a product that you do not
Even
actually
have.
have. Now, it might be that the product was damaged in the warehouse or whatever, but that's not what they said. They said we don't have it in stock. That's different. Um, Maybe it's because they're not being honest. I don't know
Or they shouldn't have taken the order in the first place and said out of stock.
exactly. Um, yeah, it's not good.
And I know people have been struggling to get stock in since COVID. For some reason now we're still people are still using that as an excuse, aren't they? And they're still using it as a reason not to provide a service, which I find very ironic. Really, I mean, you've had COVID, but you still function. Do you know what I'm saying? You can still run your business. You can still do what you need to do.
I think that a lot of businesses are still using the COVID excuse. I think the financial industry, banks, mortgage companies, they're all using COVID as a
Yeah,
massive excuse. Even legal firms are, and I think a lot of that is due to the working from home culture. In that, yes, it's important that we allow people to work from home, but you know, not when their job depends on things like paperwork being signed.
yeah,
If they need to sign paperwork or view paperwork or post paperwork. So if you've got to post some paperwork to your bank or a mortgage application, you need a physical person to go in and look at that.
yeah, yeah.
If that person now only goes into the office once
Once
a
a
week,
week. Yeah,
what that then means is that if you miss them by a day, you've got a whole week to wait for
yeah, yeah,
your
7 days,
document
isn't it?
gets looked at. Everything becomes elongated and delayed. And I'm sure we'll talk about that on a podcast later on. But yeah, it's bizarre. I saw a really interesting tweet from somebody the other day who's they're sort of what are they? They're like a business educator, I suppose is the word. And it was along the lines of my staff team. they keep asking for remote working. So today I introduced them to the remote team that's going to take their jobs, because what he was basically saying is that, if you don't want to come into the office, you don't want to see customers, you don't want to do any of that stuff, then I may well as go and offshore my team
Yeah.
and make them remote, because the business will, it's much cheaper to do that.
Yeah.
The
Well, you
service.
found that as well in your
Well,
own business,
exactly,
haven't you,
that's
to a
it. I
certain
have
degree?
found that having an element of using remote working offshore, you can achieve things differently.
Yeah.
There are cost savings, but also you come across some uh, incredible flexibility
Yeah.
that I think a lot of people in our country don't have. I've got somebody that is a young mother who needs to look after her children around school times and dinner times and bath times, all of that kind of stuff. But she kind of fits her work in around a day.
Yeah.
So she'll do a little bit early morning. She'll do some sort of over that span of lunchtime and into the afternoon. Then her kids come home from school. She sorts them out, and then she gets back onto her computer in the evening.
Yeah.
So whilst she still does a full day's work, it's split up. It's almost like a split shift.
Does that bother you though?
No, not at all, because the work gets done, and it's just, I think, a show of sort of compassion and flexibility, which I think a lot of people aren't interested in doing here. I think they think that, if flexible working is between the hours of 9 to 5,
Yeah.
so, they might want flexible working and they might want to work, I don't know, from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. They don't want to work from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m., because 5 p.m. in most people's minds that's the end of work. We don't do work after 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Well, that's not quite what flexible working is. Flexible working works both ways for the employer and staff member. But yeah, it is really interesting. I've got a friend who's a software developer, and he's worked from home now for the last, well, throughout COVID, really 3 years, and the company that he works for wanted to start bringing people back into the office for a couple of days a week, and he said, "Oh, I think I'm going to change jobs," because he just does not want to go and work in an office. And I said to him, I said, "Well, you've got the flexibility that you're talking about 2 days a week is not a lot."
No.
But what he's realised is that the cost of going to work now for those 2 days a week is more than it was for 5 days a week before the pandemic and all the price
Really?
increases. Yeah, he's calculated it. So I kind of get where he's coming from, but yeah, we're in interesting times. I mean, you look at some of the other big organisations out there. Um, you know, Tesla's a really good example, where Elon Musk is saying that, you don't come back to work, you
You
don't
don't
have a
have a
job
job.
anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very extreme way to do it. But there's lots of studies out there for both sides.
Yeah, because what they say though, isn't there? There's a level of more production when people are in the office, and then there's some people that are less productive when they're in the office, or it implies that, and they're more productive when they're at home. And I'm going to be really controversial, and I wonder if, like you was talking about the young lady that does the work for you,
Mm.
and I wonder if it's sometimes a bit more of a, is it a, like, let's say females might be better working from home than males, or people that have got children, or people that don't have. Do you know what I'm saying? And is it the
Yeah,
structures that you've developed?
I think that I'm not sure that it's gender specific or age
Right.
specific. I think it's more role specific. So I think it depends on what the role is. So if you are in a role that is fairly lone working, um, you know, someone that provides computer support as an
Yeah, yeah,
example, that is a role that can quite easily be done at home. And the reason I say that is, 9 times out of 10, they've got headphones on, they're on the phone to a customer, they're sharing a screen, that kind of thing. That can happen from home, and productivity can probably be very, very similar.
yeah,
Um, Mainly because it's also an inbound type role. It's inbound customer service. So you either take the phone calls or you don't,
yeah,
and that's also easily measured from a stats perspective. So an employer can verify that somebody's working. If you are in an admin role,
Who
whereby
knows? Feels like
where
something I'll be doing.
whereby your job is to deal with, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, just emails, general
Yeah, yeah.
emails. Again, you can measure that
Of course you can.
based on emails and how they're being dealt with. But whether you do 50 in an hour or 5 in an hour, you almost need to go back 3 years to when that person or that role was in the office and say, well, did they do more or less at that time
Yeah.
compared with now? And there's clearly a lot more distractions at home. You have got essentially children, delivery. I mean, the number of times I've gone on a Zoom call and I've had a delivery happening while I'm on a
Yeah,
call.
I know that
Um,
feeling.
but the people that I've been on Zoom calls with, I reckon probably almost 50% of Zoom calls I'm on it. At least somebody in the Zoom calls had a delivery, which is quite funny, really. Um, but you've got distractions like that. You've got distractions like the weather, all of that kind of stuff that goes on.
The
The
dog that
news, the
needs walking,
dog,
the cat,
all of
the
that.
rabbit in the garden needs feeding, and but isn't that the problem?
I think potentially it is, but those problems are not. You have got distractions in an office environment. You've got the sort of the chit chat around the
Yeah, yeah, I agree
walls.
with you.
The old adage goes,
Go out and have a fag, do this,
all of
do
that
that. Yeah, yeah.
stuff. So I think there's pros and cons for both. And like I said, in my view, I think it's about role. What is the role, and is that a role that can be done professionally and well in a home working
Yeah, yeah.
environment?
See, I do counselling, obviously, as you know, and I do work from Zoom,
Yeah.
and I actually have found it really effective, particularly for people that live in America
Yeah.
and various other places that they can't commute and I can't commute. But I just do feel sometimes that some people take advantage of it, and perhaps it's a discussion to pick up at a later date, really, about.
I think it is. And it'd be great for anybody that's watching or listening to give us their kind of views in the comments or email us. But we'll end it there, shall we?
We should.
Thank you.
Thank you.